This is one way to make a paint palette using clay. Here's an example of what it might look like. You can design it in any shape that you want. Mine's going to be sort of rectangular, and it's going to have 6 wells that we can put paint in. One is going to be extra large. First, you're going to need to make lumps of clay that you will use to shape your slab over these wells. Looking back on it, I would have made these a little bit smaller if I were making this a second time. You can have as many wells as you want, and they can be any shape that you want. This one's going to be a little bit larger to hold a little bit more paint. Now, you can leave them a little bit round if you want to, but I thought it might be helpful to smash them a little bit. That way the clay slab going over it would drape over it and form over it a little bit easier. So after you smash these, make sure that they're the shape that you want. I wanted mine to be round. And then we are going to let them dry for a little bit to leather hard, just so that the clay slab won't stick to it. I'm smashing this one because it is a little bit high. And now forming it into a more perfect rectangle by tapping it. I decided that one was a little too thick, so I cut it. Like I said, let those shapes that you made in clay dry to leather hard. Now I'm going to take a slab of clay. There's several different ways to roll out a slab of clay. You can use a rolling pin. It needs to be as large as that paper design that you drew. Another way to roll out a slab is to use a slab roller if you have one. So this is a slab roller. Make sure you put canvas over and under the clay so it doesn't stick to the roller. And this will roll it to a perfect 1/4 inch thickness. Take that back to your table. I like to roll mine a little bit thinner than the slab roller does. I think it's going to drape over your forms a little bit easier if it's a thinner slab. You don't want it to be too thin though, because then it will break. So this one here is about 1/8 of an inch. It's always important to smooth out your slab with a sponge and a kidney just to get those canvas texture off of it. So now I'm going to use a fettling knife, and I'm going to trace around this shape that I made on paper, because this is the shape that my paint palette is going to be. Try to make one single cut if you can. If you can't, 2 is okay. And rather than moving the palette, I like to remove the clay around it. If you want to put a piece of plastic between the clay forms and your clay slab, you can, but as long as those are leather hard, hopefully they will not stick. So I'm going to take this, put it face down, smooth side down, on all those clay forms that I made. Remember, those are leather hard. And you notice it's on a board as well. And all I'm going to do is take this board and just drop it several times and tap it on the table. Each time you do that, the soft clay slab will continue draping around those clay forms, and it will take the shape of those and kind of fold around it and form around it. You can help push it a little bit if you want, but I just had to drop it several times. Each time you drop it, you can notice that it is forming a little bit more around those other forms. You do kind of want it flat around the edges, so that's why I was pushing it flat around the edges, but other than that, you can see where it's formed around them. I'm just going to add a hole so I can put my thumb through that in the paint palette. Make sure to put your name or initials on the bottom, so that when it goes through the kiln, if you have a whole classroom full, you'll know which student's palette belongs to them. And I do like to smooth the bottom as well. Make sure that that looks nice and smooth. Now, when this is dry and your other forms are dry, you should just be able to pop those forms out of it, because you didn't score and slip it to them, so they should not stick. Some of my students had a little more trouble than others, but then I just do one final smoothing with a wet sponge. Make sure it looks as beautiful as possible before it goes into the kiln. Then I fired it, we underglazed it, and then I fired it again, and here it is.